Oh wait. Oh wait. I didn't even see. Hold on. Hopefully, it's actually good. Wait, Kurt, are you? Dang, I don't know what's up with this. I'm gonna go out and come back in because man, it is really bad.
Okay.
Hold on.
Welcome everyone. We are live, so PB's having some technical difficulties. He actually is now finally an admin. So being an admin, what's happening is he's learning how to do the system. Let me put myself back. I hit the wrong thing. Okay, so I don't have my background and everything for here. Uh, so anyways, like I said, what's happening is PB is uh, learning how to run StreamYard. So I was going through some of the things, but he's also having some computer issues. So just to let you know, he'll be back here momentarily and and entering and stuff. Now, also want to let you know that he is doing the end of the series and doing the conclusion and all on the new covenant, the 102. So again, it's the next session up. So that's what he's going to do. Hopefully, if his internet will run properly, but he's not fully in yet. Okay. What fun this is. Now, I'm just helping him get things started. I can't stay and do the show because one, I don't have his notes. Two is I actually have a Bible study I do at 8 o'clock. It's fellowship time we do, and then 8 o'clock I do the Bible study. And yes, as he said, we are going through Ephesians. It is going slow right now, so we're not piling through the verses and stuff. So who knows how long it will really take. So that's part of the thing with the Bible study I'm doing. But like I said, waiting for PB to get back and with the internet thing. Hopefully, this will all work out. Let's see. There he is.
Okay.
Okay, I just kind of informed him about what's going on. You learning the also being an admin and learning how to do this, and then also the
Right.
end of the series, and also and things like. Now you did get that box once you hit go live the second time. You got that box, correct? That was covering everything.
Right. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, just go
Yep.
outside box,
Um.
click on, click your mouse outside the box, and it eliminates it, and you're able to see everything you
Yeah.
need to. Okay, now just, and I know I'll let you get going, but just a reminder, just click end stream and then end stream again, and that will actually shut you completely down. That's all you have to.
Okay. Yeah. No.
Okay.
That'll help a lot. I think it might be my computer. I need to get a better
Yeah, well,
recording
I
computer.
know I know that it's your computer for your slowness and stuff, not here,
Right.
but yeah, just helping you along and stuff. Okay, I'll let you get going. I'm heading out, and you have an enjoyable program.
All right. Yeah. So yeah. Hopefully my audio and video is actually good. Let me see. It's a lot better when I'm not in StreamYard because then I don't have to use my internet, and so then we don't have to go through all of that stuff again. So this is our final episode for our series. It ends just like it began. We start in a classroom, we end in a classroom, and we are specific. And we also got the ruler there, so we got the banana with the sunglasses. And this is our epilogue. Basically, we're just going to be going over Bruce Compton's paper. Okay, thanks, Lynn. 5x5 audio. We're going to be going over Bruce Compton's paper. It's only 30 pages. I managed to condense it in a decent amount of slides, and it's by me, your lovely host, Sean. So, for the introduction to this, the issue of the new covenant is one that gets to the heart of the interpretive methods, and it still stands as the dividing line for many systems. Now, of course, what we mean by this, when we're talking about interpretive methods, is we have to understand what a literal hermeneutic is. What does it mean that something is literal? That it takes the text literally in the New Covenant. You've seen Roy Beecham go through it, and basically he argued about the very strict ancient Near East covenant context for the New Covenant, what it means, how it functions, how we should interpret it, rather than a promise, and also how the New Testament uses the Old Testament. How does the New Testament use New Covenant texts from the Old Testament? Is it a metaphor in the New Testament? Is it an analogy? Is it a fulfillment? Stuff like that. So we ended our official study on the covenants, right? So this has been 16 episodes straight on the New Covenant. Abrahamic, we talked about the Mosaic, a little bit of the New Covenant, a little bit of the Davidic Covenant. But now we're going, Bruce Compton, who is a dispensationalist, but he's not... He's not in some ways he's not so similar with some of the other people presenting. He's going to give us a summary of the information we've learned. Now, what he's going to do is, number one, he's going to examine what the New Testament says about the relationship between the church and the New Covenant, or at least his opinion about what the New Testament says. And then second of all, he's going to interact with the debate over the core dispensational distinctives addressed in this relationship. So basically all that means is he's going to interact and say, hey, why is this debate happening? What are the different views of it? And which view is the best to analyze, to adopt as a dispensationalist when you consider the New Testament context? But of course, we're going to briefly go over the 5 main views of the New Covenant. We've looked at these before in our previous 11-part study. So let's go into it. So the first view is the replacement theology view. Now, this view is basically that the church fully replaces the nation of Israel as the people of God. The new covenant is in force right now with the church. No blessings are withheld for national Israel. It does not receive it at a separate time as a separate sociological entity. And it's only received by Jews as they join the church, which is now primarily Gentile. There's a dual covenant view professed by people like Louis Sperry Schaeffer and Early Walvoord that argue that there's 2 new covenants in Scripture. One is for the nation of Israel in the eschaton, prophesied in Jeremiah 31 and other places, and another is for the church, which ultimately is a mystery in the plan of God. These 2 covenants are similar in substance, but they're unique in fulfillment. One is fulfilled with the church, one is fulfilled with the nation of Israel. A third view is one that we've looked at extensively, is the Israel-only view. This Israel-only view is that the new covenant is solely for the nation of Israel in the millennial kingdom. The church receives no blessings from the new covenant, not directly, not indirectly. It does not participate in the new covenant, but its redemption blessings are similar to or analogous to the new covenant. This new covenant is not inaugurated until the return of Jesus with the Jewish people. The fourth view is that it's a partial fulfillment view. Now, this view is different from the second view because the church not only receives blessings from the new covenant, but also in some way fulfills the Old Testament passages about it in an unexpected or expanded way, even though the ultimate or final fulfillment awaits Israel in the kingdom with the return of the Messiah. And then the blessing participant view is that the church only receives secondarily redemption blessings from the new covenant. It doesn't receive land blessings. It doesn't receive kingdom-only blessings. It doesn't receive those kinds of things. It fulfills no promises of the new covenant, and it does not even get all the blessings. So again, it's still, all of it is still fulfilled by Israel. Nothing is fulfilled by the church, but they secondarily get blessings because of its ratification at the cross. Now, going into an Old Testament survey, which you see from the Gomer and Hosea part, the top left there, you see Ezekiel with the dry bones. you see Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, and you see the scroll of Isaiah, right, in the bottom right. We're going to be going over an Old Testament survey of some key New Covenant texts, right? Basically, we're going to say, hey, if you were just a Jewish reader from Genesis to Malachi, what would you understand about the New Covenant? And specifically, we're going to limit ourselves to the writing of the prophets. And in this case, we're only going to go over 4 prophets: Jeremiah, Hosea, Isaiah, and Ezekiel. Bruce Compton, we actually saw Bruce Compton's method of how he evaluates specific New Covenant passages. And I think he makes a mistake, although it's his writing. He assumes that the locus classicus of the New Covenant he's going to examine is Jeremiah 31, right? He's also going to assume that the New Covenant is a promissory grant covenant, similar to the Abrahamic and Davidic. He's also going to assume these promises were not fulfilled in any way by Babylonian exile, with Ezra and Nehemiah installing the Mosaic covenant, but it could potentially be foreshadowed by those historical events, right? So basically, we're just going to go over 4 different prophets. What do they say about the New Covenant? Assuming all of these things are in place, and just letting the scriptures speak for themselves, okay? Now, going over to our weeping prophet with the New Covenant, this is the key New Covenant text, Jeremiah 31, but it's not just Jeremiah 31. You have Jeremiah 32, 39 to 40. You have Jeremiah 50, 4 to 5, which is citing from Jeremiah 24, 4 to 7. So here's what we can definitively and unambiguously know about the New Covenant just from these 3 texts alone. We know that, number 1, the New Covenant is contrasted with the Mosaic Covenant in Jeremiah 31, 32. And it contains the divine Torah in the book. But if you look throughout the book of Jeremiah, the Torah is not really just the Mosaic law. It definitely includes it. It's a form of it. But the Torah is just instruction, right? It's just teachings in the book. Jeremiah 33:3 is God's phone number. It is a loan made with the 2 kingdoms of Israel and Judah. We know that they were separated under the reign of King Solomon into Israel, Judah, Jerusalem, Samaria, those kinds of things. But according to other passages, they will again be formed as one kingdom, which God calls Israel. Okay? Now, according to Bruce Compton, now this is Bruce Compton's view. I don't believe you can get this from the text, but that's his opinion. He says it involves the regeneration, which would be the receiving of everlasting life, of individual hearts. This is not unique to the New Covenant, since it existed under the Mosaic, but now will be provided for by all the participants. So he argues that the New Covenant, the writing of the law in your hearts, is regeneration, that it includes some kind of obedience, right? A desire for obedience. And that the only thing new about it is that it's going to be experienced by everyone, similar to what Roy Beecham argues. Now, interestingly, he says it produces an eternal and inviolable relationship with God and the nation of Israel, which includes necessarily, again, from what we know from the text, knowing God, which we know is in Jeremiah, such as Jeremiah 9, Jeremiah 2, Jeremiah 23, for obedience to God's law, the complete forgiveness of their sins, right, in terms of their covenant violation, the restoration of Israel and the regathering of his people, and a reign of righteousness under the Davidic king, which we also know from Jeremiah 33 is the one who's going to sit on David's throne. We also see in Hosea, we're moving on canonically into Hosea, the similarities between Hosea 2:18 to 23, only these 6 verses, and Jeremiah include the following. For one, we know that the covenant is placed in an eschatological context. We see in the start of Hosea 2, it talks about the judgment of Israel, their sins, their iniquities, and then it goes on into the salvation of Israel. This is in the middle of Hosea's 3 chapter, Hosea 1, 2, and 3, judgment, salvation cycle, but the promise of 2:18 is very similar to that of Jeremiah 31:31, when he says, I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel. Now, this covenant is compared to a marriage. Interestingly, in the Mosaic covenant, God divorced Israel for her sins. Under the new covenant, God betroths Israel, gets him back again as her bride for fellowship with the nation. It's going to be an eternal fellowship with the nation of Israel, right? Now, this covenant fellowship leads to obedience. It's not the source of it. So Israel is not in fellowship with God because of her obedience. They obey God because of their fellowship. That's very different. Additionally, Hosea emphasizes the cessation of warfare, right, with putting the plows in the land and not learning how to wage war again. But also we see that it's with the animal kingdom. I will make a covenant between Israel and the beasts of the field. Now, of course, exactly what this means, we don't know if it's a separate covenant, if it's part of the new covenant provisions, but it seems to be simply a blessing or agreement God will make, where he also promises that Israel will never again experience destruction by land, sea, and air animals, which would correspond to the forgiveness of their sins. They're not going to be dispersed from the land and chastised under the new covenant. Now, moving on to Isaiah, there's a lot in Isaiah. I would say possibly even more in Isaiah about the new covenant than even Jeremiah, even though Isaiah comes hundreds of years before. Because we see that there's actually at least 6 references to the new covenant by name, directly or indirectly, in the book of Isaiah. We see those references in Isaiah 42, Isaiah 49, Isaiah 54, 55, etc. Although my personal favorite is Isaiah 59, 20 to 21, which is defines also the covenant mediator. Now, these all take place in what is normally called the book of comfort, right? A lot of people call it the book of comfort because, a lot of people call it the book of comfort because under the in Isaiah 1 to 39, it talks about the judgment of Israel, the judgment of the world, the tribulation. But then in Isaiah 40 to 66, generally speaking, it's talking about the salvation of Israel, the hope that comes as a result of these promises. And it also introduces a servant of Israel that will reign in righteousness, right? So these are important distinguishers. Now, the goal of the covenant, the intended outcome of this new covenant, is to restore the land as desolate, which we know in Isaiah 49 verse 8, and to give unparalleled and eternal blessings to Israel, which we know from Isaiah 61 verses 7 to 8. Okay? Now, this covenant is established, as we know, with the servant of Israel by a divine covenant mediator who comes to deliver the nation from oppression and sin, and he puts his spirit in them. This is explicit in Isaiah 59 when he says, and this is my covenant unto them. My word will be in their mouth and will not depart, and will be in their seed and in their seed's seed forevermore. Okay. Now, of course, we identified that in the previous study as the Lord is my God. That's what they're going to be. That's what they're going to say. That's what they're going to say in Isaiah chapter 51. Okay, that he also says here in Isaiah 59. Now, as a corollary to this new covenant blessing to the nation of Israel, he's also going to give spiritual insight, which is called light to the Gentiles, which is a freedom from spiritual blindness, right? The lack of knowledge of God, their salvation, positional and experiential, right? He's going to be deliverer and mediator, and this deliverer is the promised Davidic king in Isaiah 55 verse 3, which was mentioned before as the root of Jesse in Isaiah chapter 11. So interestingly in Isaiah, so Jeremiah gives you the basis of it, right? Hosea gives you those additional blessings and the forgiveness in a marriage context. And then Isaiah tells you who the covenant mediator is. It's the servant of Israel, which we know in Isaiah 53 also dies for the nation of Israel as well, and is exalted and raised up and stuff like that. Now, concerning Ezekiel, again, there's just a lot in Ezekiel. We're going to have to briefly get through it, but there's only 3 passages by name in Ezekiel. Again, like that say directly, this is a covenant in Ezekiel 16, Ezekiel 34, 25, and Ezekiel 37, 26. However, 2 of these passages in Isaiah 11 and Ezekiel 11 and Ezekiel 36 are also included because of their similar eschatological context. So basically, for Bruce Compton, if it's in an eschatological context for the nation of Israel, it's also part of the New Covenant passage. Very interesting hermeneutic. Now, as always, as we've seen before, the prosperity of Israel happens after her condemnation is emphasized in these contexts, which we again know is permanent and everlasting in Ezekiel 16. The nation at the time will know God, they'll obey his word, which we know in Ezekiel 37 is they'll walk in all my statutes, and they'll have fellowship with God again, despite her sinful ways. Now, again, what Bruce Compton calls the work of regeneration is more fleshed out in these passages, where God puts his spirit in them and they receive a new heart, so they will not turn away from him. They will also be mediated and led by a Davidic ruler during this time, which we know is likely the Messiah. Now, it's interesting. There's multiple views on the my servant David or my prince David in these Ezekiel passages. Some people believe it's literally the resurrected David. That's possible. Other people say it's also just the simply promised Davidic king. That's equally possible. That's not an issue there. Right? I'm not going to be dogmatic on it. But basically, the point is that there's going to be a time of rulership and singularity in Israel at this time, where there's going to be a Davidic ruler. Now, interestingly, all of these, we've all seen this before, right? The Davidic king as the mediator, the unparalleled blessings, the forgiveness of sins. We've seen all this language before. But what Ezekiel introduces for us is that in Isaiah 37, he's going to establish his sanctuary, which we know is the temple of the Lord, forever in Israel, which is clearly the same temple promised in Ezekiel chapter 40 to 48, where they'll do sacrifices, they'll give offerings in the kingdom, right? Now, we're going to go over a New Testament survey, right? We see the Pauline letters, the Lord's Supper, and the book of Hebrews there. I mean, you got to go over the book of Hebrews. If you're going to go over the New Covenant, you got to go over the book of Hebrews. It's completely, I mean, there's no question about it. Now, this is what a good student is supposed to do. Let's say you've gone through the Old Testament and you said, hey, this is what the New Covenant is for. This is who it's for. These are the provisions. This is everything that the New Covenant says. So, you take that understanding and then you go over to the New Testament. You follow that progressive revelation that the readers would have had over the course of time. So, of course, you got to go into the New Testament. What does the New Testament say about the New Covenant? Now, interestingly, the New Covenant is referenced 13 places in the New Testament, either by name or by implication. These references include 3 references in the Synoptics with the Lord's Supper. They include 3 references in the Pauline epistles, and they include 7 references in the book of Hebrews, again, either by name or by implication. Okay? But the question is, that Bruce Compton will try to answer for us, is can the New Testament give us additional insight as to the ratification of the New Covenant? What is its relationship to the church? What is its relationship to Israel? Or does it largely remain the same as the Old Testament context? Now, let's go with the New Covenant in the Synoptic Gospels. So the New Covenant in the Synoptics record Christ's statement at the Last Supper, which is basically, it switches. So it can either be, this is the blood of the New Covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins, or it can be, this cup is the New Covenant, right? Or this is my blood of the New Covenant, right? And so, or this cup is the New Covenant. It depends on the wording. It depends on the wording of what they're emphasizing. The only one that's excluded is John, because he doesn't have a Last Supper meal. Now, in all three, Jesus' blood is clearly connected to the new covenant and the forgiveness of sins. Only Matthew includes explicitly the forgiveness of sins, but it's pretty implicit in Luke and in Mark, especially when he says, I give myself a ransom for many, that if it's shed for you and it's shed for many, with the Paschal Lamb imagery of redeeming Israel, it's pretty clear it's for forgiveness of sins, right? Now, in Compton's view, now we've already gone over this. I'm not going to go and reiterate all this stuff. But in Compton's view, he believes that Jesus' blood is what ratifies, or in his language, cuts the new covenant, talking about Exodus 24 and the blood of the covenant, a very clear connection to it. And of course, it could be very legitimately argued that that's just taking it from Zechariah chapter 9, verse 11, but I digress. Now, this cup more so represents the blood or the new covenant than it ontologically localizes it. And Paul seems to pick up on this point later, right, in 1 Corinthians chapter 11. So a lot of people will argue, especially Catholics, they'll say, is means is, right? This is my blood. Well, okay, but that language of is can just be easily used for it. See, this represents my blood, or this symbolizes my blood, or this symbolizes the new covenant, right? Obviously, there's nothing ontological in the cup itself. It's a memorial. It's for the remembrance of Christ's death. It says it in the text. But that's not the point of this. The disciples would have made this connection from Jeremiah 31 as well. But now the mediator sacrifice covenant is all coming together. So again, Jeremiah 31 explicitly says it's for the new covenant, forgiveness of sins. Jesus' blood, we know from Isaiah 53, is what gives the forgiveness of sins, right? Or the Messiah's blood, that he dies as a sacrifice. And we know from Isaiah 59 that he's the covenant mediator for the new covenant. So you put all these together, you have Jesus as the mediator of the new covenant through his death, burial, resurrection for the forgiveness of sins. It's pretty straightforward. Right? Okay. So next one is the new covenant in the Pauline epistle. Again, you got the Apostle Paul here. He's over in Athens. He's preaching the word. So we only need to look at 3 new covenant passages. So that's pretty nice. Now, again, there's a lot to go into here. I tried to minimize it because you can say a lot about each one of these. But each one is pretty significant. I'll try to explain it. Now, some people try to argue that Galatians 4, right? Hold on. Right? What is it? Galatians 4, 24 is talking about the new covenant. But if you just look in the context in Galatians chapter 3, 15 to 18, he's not contrasting the new with the old covenant. He's contrasting the Abrahamic with the Mosaic covenant and the provisions of righteousness. I'm not talking about the provisions of salvation. Okay? The provisions of the Spirit is what he's talking about. Now, in Romans chapter 11, the timing is clearly portrayed for us. So here we have in Romans 11 that here's the timing. I'm going to give you a brief summary. Israel rejected Christ. Okay, Israel rejected Christ. Now you have a small minority of Jews are accepting Christ as the Messiah. Okay, they're believing in him. They are the faithful remnant, the people who stuck to the message of Yahweh. Okay, and these people are the Israel of God, right? These people will receive Israel's blessings that they missed out on. But see, what's going on also is you're going to have Gentiles coming in to form this new program God is doing, right? Of trying to stir Israel to jealousy through their participation in these blessings, okay? And then what happens after that, after the fullness of the Gentiles, okay, when all the full Gentiles are saved, you're going to have Israel's blindness is removed. That's what he says explicitly in Romans 11:25. And then you have Israel's salvation with the return of Christ after the tribulation and things like that. Okay. Now, Paul links this to Isaiah 27, verse 9, possibly another new covenant text, when he says that he will take away the sins of Jacob. Okay. We're talking about the forgiveness of sins. Right. Now, going on to 1 Corinthians. Now, so there's nothing different here. This is all lined up with the Old Testament, all perfectly in sync with it. There's no issue there, right? Now, going on to 1 Corinthians 11, it's basically the same issue as the Last Supper, right? Paul quotes the Lucan version of it, which makes sense considering he's a companion of Luke, right? And he says, and he argues with the Lucan version, he says, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood, shed for many or shed for you," right? Or poured out for many, which in Compton's view links the believers to the new covenant, since Paul identifies that cup as the new covenant cup used by the Corinthians. So in Compton's mind, if Christ, okay, if this cup is the new covenant cup that Christ talks about, then therefore, and believers drink of that new covenant cup, therefore believers drink of the new covenant, therefore by the communion they participate in the new covenant. Of course, we'll give our thoughts and disagreements why that's not the case, but in 2 Corinthians 3:6, another common one, which oddly enough, even Rodney Decker disagrees with Compton here. He says, look, you can't get anything from 2 Corinthians 3, okay? He's like, look, if you're trying to use 2 Corinthians 3 to prove that we're in the new covenant, you can't do that, okay? But he argues that since Paul calls his ministry a ministry of a new covenant, right, which he argues is provided by God's Spirit, therefore, that's the same Spirit prophesied in the new covenant that Paul directly quotes in chapter 6. Therefore, again, believers are under, in some sense, the blessings of the new covenant. Again, that's his opinion. So his ministry provides right, and since he also says his ministry provides righteousness and salvation, right? Therefore, his ministry also provides the new covenant. So you see how Compton's arguing that. So therefore, the blessings of the new covenant come with the gospel. Now, the third one, obviously, we have to go over is the new covenant in Hebrews. Now, we've gone over this like, 5 times? We went over it in the intro to this series, the last series. We went over it with the single covenant Israel only view. We went over it with Johnson. We went over it with Beecham. We went over it with Decker. We went over it with other authors, maybe 6 times at this point. Right. So, I mean, at this point, Compton's not saying anything new, but Compton's not saying anything new here. Right. But, there's a reason why this is. Hold on. There's a reason why this is the most quoted book about the new covenant. I mean, it mentions it 7 times. So, I mean, it's got to be important, right? According to Compton, several key factors indicate that believers in the book participate in some way from the new covenant. He doesn't say exactly how, but in some way. So one reason is because, so he gives 4 reasons, by the way. One reason is that Christ's priestly ministry is directly linked to and operates under the new covenant. No new covenant, no priesthood. So if he's a priest, he's a covenant mediator. Therefore, he mediates under the new covenant, and he's a priest under the new covenant. So that's his argument. His second argument is that since Christ is the mediator of the covenant, insofar he has provided ratification for it by his death, and in Hebrews 9:15-18, he translates it as inaugurated the covenant, right? In 8:6, in Hebrews 8:6, he says it's established. Now, weirdly enough, just like Decker, he never gives the Greek word for this and how it corresponds to Hebrews 7 verse 11, but I don't know why no one does it. I don't know. It's just a little pet peeve, right? And the fourth reason is because in Hebrews 10:16-18, the forgiveness promised under the new covenant is quoted twice, also in Hebrews 8:8-12, and it directly applies to the audience, right? Even though the them is changed from the believers to the nation of Israel, or the nation of Israel to them. So it's still the nation of Israel that's going to ultimately get the forgiveness, but the believers now participate in the forgiveness. So again, that's his argument, right? Also, just a quick thing, right? It says Philly Cheese loves New Covenant. Is this an acronym? Yes. So NC is an acronym. I use acronyms a lot just for simplification. NC means New Covenant. Don't worry, it doesn't mean North Carolina. It means New Covenant. MC means Mosaic Covenant. AC means Abrahamic Covenant. And DC does not mean Detective Comics. It means Davidic Covenant, right? So, evaluation 1. He's going to evaluate 5 views of the New Covenant, right? We're going to be looking at them closely here and see if they line up with the scriptures. Now, the first view is that it's the replacement view, the one we looked at before, right? So it says Compton. So the first view is basically covenant theology. If you're familiar with it, if you believe in it, you're very aware of what the replacement view is, which we said before. Again, Israel equals church, church equals Israel. Therefore, it doesn't matter if it says Israel, it doesn't matter if it says church. They're one and the same entity. There's fundamentally no distinction. Now, of course, Compton says, look, this makes no sense. This makes no sense because of Romans 9-11, right? They clearly use the term to distinguish saved Gentiles from saved Jews or even unbelieving Jews, clearly making that distinction there. So you can't argue that Israel is not Israel, because clearly in Romans 9-11, Israel is Israel. Israel is real, okay? Now, Paul also mentions in Romans 11:26, hey, the future salvation of Israel. All Israel will be saved. That's not positional individual salvation. That's corporate national salvation at the end of the tribulation, right? So the second problem is that there's no evidence at all, right, to suggest the church takes that language of Israel in the New Testament. Now, of course, I've seen the claims people make, right? People argue in Romans chapter 2, Romans chapter 9, Galatians 6:16. Oh, these are all saying the church or believers, all believers are Israel. But there's actually no problem here because, look, all of these are Jewish believers. All of these are talking about the faithful remnant of believers who walk in the steps of Abraham. Okay, Romans 2, it says a true Jew is not one who is merely a Jew outwardly, circumcision of the flesh, but a Jew is one inwardly. He's taking that context, Deuteronomy chapter 10, Deuteronomy 30, Jeremiah 4, Jeremiah 18, to talk about covenant faithfulness, right? Not to Jewish people, not talking about all believers. Romans 9:6 also makes it very clear you must be of Israel to be part of the Israel. So it's not expanding it, it's limiting it to a specific subsect of Israel. And Galatians 6:16, the chi there, grammatically speaking, most likely refers to and on top of. So again, there's no issue there. Now, the second evaluation is with the dual covenant view. I agree with, I actually agree with Compton here fully. I think that this view is completely decimated by the book of Hebrews. I mean, I don't believe my view is. I don't think there's anything. But he says, no. If you're looking at Hebrews, there's no way in God's green earth that you could possibly come away with the two covenant view. It's impossible. His priesthood, his mediatorship, it's all connected with the new covenant. It explicitly is quoted with Jeremiah 31. It's contrasted with the Mosaic in 2 Corinthians 3, right? Which is, by the way, in a list of metaphors from Jeremiah 30 to 33, which we talked about before in our presentation. It's not a separate covenant from the new covenant. No writer anywhere in Scripture at all lists a separate covenant for the church, right? That would make no sense. It's always participation in existing covenants, such as the Abrahamic covenant in Galatians 3:14, the blessing of Abraham. It's purely theological. There's no biblical stance for it. There's no reason to adopt this view, right? It's an attempt to be in the right direction, right, and understand things systematically, but ultimately it just fails. It just fails as an actual view. Now, 3. This is me. So he's going to try to destroy my view here with the Israel-only view. Compton seems to have serious problems with it, but they all exclusively come from his interpretation of New Testament passages, especially the book of Hebrews. Now, we've seen before he takes Hebrews as a key text to refute the view. We already seen the reasons why he does. I don't need to reiterate the reasons, right, for you. I mean, I've already exegetically responded to Decker's paper where I disagree with it. You can see that in the last video why I disagreed with it and where I think it goes wrong. So I don't need to rehash it. He also harps really heavily on the idea of Paul's quotation in 1 Corinthians 11 and the new covenant. So he says, oh, this cup is the new covenant, right? And so his argument is that therefore, because it's called the cup of the new covenant, therefore the Corinthians participate in the new covenant. Obviously, there's a massive problem with this view. is that you don't participate in the new covenant by taking the Lord's Supper. That's not a thing. Because again, he's not a sacramentalist, right? He's not a Catholic. So why would he believe, oh, you participate in the new covenant by the communion? Look, even if you didn't take communion, you'd still, in his view, participate in the new covenant. So I see absolutely no reason to suspect that this is talking about participation in the new covenant. It's a memorial of Christ's death, right? So again, in that view, does that mean that he believes it's not by faith alone that you participate? Is it faith plus the Eucharist? So again, that's a massive internal contradiction. He's also convinced that the 2 Corinthians 3:6 shows new covenant participation as well through the Holy Spirit, but he actually does recognize it's not really talking about new covenant benefits. It's mostly talking about the type of ministry that Paul leads, which is a new covenant-like ministry, which is what we argued before. But that's whatever. Now, his fourth view has to do with a partial fulfillment view. This one is pretty nuanced. It has a lot more to do with hermeneutical methods than any particular text, because again, you're just going to interpret every text completely different. This is definitely more of a progressive dispensationalist type of idea, right? And many people deny it, but really it's just the same thing as the Catholic idea of a sensus plenior, right? A fuller sense that ultimately fulfills, but progressively is fulfilled. The main problem with this is hermeneutically that there can only be one meaning in the text, right? There's two important principles you always have to carry with you in hermeneutics. Number one is that the meaning is in the text, and there's only one meaning, okay? And this one meaning is what the divine author and the human author intended. So these three principles, if you take these three principles and you apply them to every text in the Bible, you will come away with a consistent literal grammatical hermeneutic. You know, if you try to add additional meanings on top of the text that the human author never intended, right, then you have a problem. Now, what some people argue is that, well, God anticipated the future. God anticipated the future fulfillment, but he didn't negate the prior fulfillment, right? Well, okay, but that means that he didn't communicate effectively what he wanted to say. So God is intentionally hiding something that he's saying with no possibility that anyone could understand his words at the time it was given, which obviously has a problem because Jesus expects people to understand what his words mean in the Gospels, right? So it's just not really a good view of the scriptures. It destroys the singleness of meaning by Elliot Johnson. And sometimes they use passages like Acts chapter 2, Joel chapter 2, to try to prove it, but really it's just analogous. It's just like, look, the type of spiritual movement, the type of spiritual revival that's happening in Joel chapter 2 for Israel is also happening in Acts chapter 2, obviously in a different way, right, with the apostles, but it's just giving a precedent for it. It's not direct. Now, he believes the fifth evaluation we're looking at is the blessing participant view. This is his favorite view. And he had a lot of praise for it, very little arguments against it. He tries to rebut some arguments, but there's some issues there. He addresses two objections, one of which is, namely, is there sufficient evidence for this view? And can it be possible to have something be ratified but not fulfilled, right? And of course, he argues again that there's sufficient evidence in the New Testament to argue that we have the blessings of the new covenant, we have the forgiveness of sins, Hebrews 10, that kind of stuff. So he doesn't need to rehash that again. Now, the second view he gets, especially from the Abrahamic covenant, which is also what Elliot Johnson uses as well, where Abraham can be in the land, right? In Hebrews chapter 11, he's in the land, he's getting blessings from the land. He was a stranger and exile in it, but it was not yet fulfilled because obviously he didn't get the land forever. It was an everlasting possession. It didn't abundantly grow. It didn't have all his seed there. So unfortunately, he didn't get those promises fulfilled yet, but he was still in the land. He was still getting blessings from the land. So that's what he argues. Now, of course, there's a main problem with this, his argument. What he wants to argue is that it's not just that the blessings come in incrementally, but it's that the blessings are given to different people than to whom they were originally promised, right? Because Abraham still gets the blessings, no doubt about it. He still gets the blessings of the land, but that's because he was promised those blessings. The church is never promised the new covenant in the Old Testament text, right? So you're just changing the parties, which doesn't really make sense to me. He does not see, but unfortunately, he does not see church fulfillment of her blessings. Those are clearly delineated in the Old Testament text, right? We do not fulfill the new covenant, but we get blessing, stuff like that. So that's what he argues, right? Now, this is our final one. This is our final game. We're going to play Who Wants to Be a Dispensationalist, okay? This is we did 3 of these before. Now we're going to do a 4th one, and hopefully you enjoy it. So now, how does the what is it? How does the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire theme go? It's basically it's like dun 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 dun. Yeah, which view does Bruce Compton believe, from what we've read so far, to be the best explanation of the new covenant from a dispensationalist perspective? Is it A, the dual covenant view? Is it B, the Israel-only view? Is it C, the partial fulfillment view? Or is it D, the blessing participant view? Now, you got one of 2 options for your help. You can either watch the clip back, okay, like a famous YouTuber once said, or you can resurrect me. You can resurrect a banana. Maybe he can help you on the day of judgment, right? But I'm going to give you a solid 10 seconds to answer this question for me. All right. Now, if you picked option D, good job, right? Because in the before ones, we kind of messed with your head, right? You were finally right, right? I gave you a win there. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have disagreements with it regardless. I mean, I still disagree with him ultimately in how he articulates things. But Roy Beecham has expressed his thoughts more on why it can't work. I think he addressed Elliot Johnson pretty well. I think he was pretty good on that front. There are a lot of problems with it when we just consider the Old Testament context. If we just look at the Old Testament text, it's pretty clear-cut who it's for, what its purpose. I don't believe he's provided sufficient evidence from the New Testament to substantiate his claims. The New Testament text never changes, so it's not like we're going to add some other text that says we're under the New Covenant. I mean, I see where he's coming from. I understand why he says it. I understand his issue with it. I understand he respects Scripture. I don't have a problem with Bruce Compton at all. It's a pretty common view, and hey, if you believe this view, I can't fault you. I mean, hey, as long as you're not a replacement theologian, look, I can't fault you for it. You believe what you believe, and just have it at that. He believes it makes most sense as data, and I don't believe it ultimately impacts much of what you view. Honestly, it's really not a big deal for me. Now, conclusion. This is the end of a 17-part, nearly year-long series on the New Covenant. We started back in, I believe, February, and we're ending in December. So it's been about a year since we started the series. I started this journey, as some of you know, and I think in December, it was in December last year, with a simple paper critiquing a lordship view on the New Covenant, and here we are now. We've done essentially all we can for now to dive deep into the subject and to give you all the tools necessary, right? Now, I send you out, right? Like sheep among slaughter, be wise as serpents and be gentle as doves to proclaim your views, right? We're going to have disagreements. We're going to have debates. We're going to have, stuff about this and papers written about it, but that's okay, right? That's to be expected. That's fine, because we can't agree on everything, okay? I even disagree with the people that I proclaim, that I agree with. I disagree with those I agree with. It's kind of crazy, right? But the important part is that we view things in light of the whole Bible, right? We exegete the relevant text. we dive deep into the scriptures, and just like 2 Timothy 2 says, you're a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. That's the important part. But however, there is the most important question left to ask, which is, any questions? The answer is probably a lot, because I see a lot of people. I see a lot of people. Yeah, I see a lot of people who commented. So I guarantee that if I actually try to, I guarantee that if I tried to look it up, then it would not look good for me. Okay. So dang, it is kind of messing up. Hold on. So hopefully everyone can hear me. So someone said, we got new holiday channel 2025. Not a big fan. There is not going to be another temple. Okay, that's an opinion. Brandon says yes, so he's kind of goated there. Not on this earth, in heaven. There's a tabernacle in heaven. Check the book of Hebrews, chapter 8. There's no temple in heaven, though. Wrong. I don't know what that was in response to. Banana tried to separate Jew and Gentile in Christ. Yeah, ethnically speaking, not spiritually. Right? And yes, I can see the chats. I just want to be focused on the presentation for now. Ezekiel 40 to 48, 2 Thessalonians 2, Matthew 24, referencing Daniel. Well, Ezekiel 40 to 48 is the millennial. So there's going to be the millennial temple, which is God's glory is going to be in the house. It's going to be in the people, right? It's going to be during the kingdom reign on earth for Israel. But 2 Thessalonians 2 is a different temple, one built by the Jewish people that is going to be defiled. So that I think that's different, right? Ezekiel 40 is insane dimensions. Yeah, and obviously Brandon has it right. PB rejects that he's in the covenant. Well, yeah, I don't believe I'm under the new covenant. I think that's for Israel. There will be a third temple where the Antichrist will be seated, calling his God. So yes, there will be a physical structure, and Jewish people already have ground and are starting to build. I'm not going to make a prophetic prediction about that, about when the temple is. When I'm just saying that if it were to happen today, or if the rapture were to happen today, I would not be surprised. He says, El Tempeli E Ole. I don't know what that is. I think that's German. PB dispensationalism is false. Okay. No. Sounds like confusion. I don't think I'm confused. If there's something you think I'm confused, then tell me. Got you. Thank you. Okay. There's not a single first-hand testimony of your Jesus in all of history. I don't think that's irrelevant. There's no first-hand testimony of Alexander the Great as well. We know him from like certain biographies and stuff written hundreds of years after his death. So that's not an issue. Also, yeah, in terms of first century accounts, I would say John. I would say the Gospels, right? Matthew and John are direct disciples. Mark is writing from the apprenticeship of Peter, right? Luke is a historian who took it from other eyewitnesses, so pretty clear evidence for it. If you want to argue that Jesus is not a historical figure, I'm going to leave that to you, because like 98% of all historians, even Bart Ehrman disagrees with you. If Bart Ehrman disagrees with you and you're an atheist, there's something wrong there. And then Brandon has it right. Yeah, good. Try doing your research before you make false claims, like always. Typical atheist. Was Socrates a real person? Yeah, that's exactly what I said. Change your name to noob. Jesus called him here. We wouldn't be showing up. Let the seeds be planted. Can you please take me off as a mod? I think I'm able to. Yeah, it's German. I didn't give permission. Yeah, the point of being a mod in this channel is not like you don't have to do anything mod related. You don't have to mod people. You don't have to do anything like that. The point is, as long as you're respectful, as long as you are a decent person and you can engage faithfully, the point is that we just have all people as mods. So we don't have other people muting each other. So we don't have other people just silencing each other. And I think the channel owner could take away mod, right? Because I'm, by the way, I'm not a channel owner. So at TLS, it says Jews in Jerusalem are preparing for a third temple in Jerusalem. They have a training school for the priests and things that go in the temple. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not gonna give a prediction when it is. I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's gonna on September of next year. I don't know, on the Feast of Trumpets or something like. I don't know when the Feast of Trumpets. It's like, yeah, on the Feast of Trumpets, it's gonna be the last trumpet, and we're gonna be caught up because that's when the Antichrist is gonna send it. Blah blah blah. No, I'm not gonna do that. Yeah, I think. I don't like to give predictions like that. I think that dispensationalism as a system is really actually against rapture predictions. I think just like if you take the text exegetically, if you're pre-trib, you would avoid making those kinds of predictions because they're not healthy, they're not good, and they're sort of strictly against what the New Testament says. It says, no man knows when the Son of Man comes. You know, you're not supposed to know. You're not supposed to know. But these are good eschatological questions. These are good eschatological questions. So I and then someone else said, yeah, his non-historian writers like Josephus, Tacitus, Pliny the Younger. I haven't looked at Pliny the Younger, but I think we've also learned recently in like the last 20 years that Luke actually was more historically accurate with Pontius Pilate's designation as governor in Judea rather than Tacitus, because we found an inscription that says Pontius Pilate, governor of Judea, whereas I think that Tacitus said that he was the procurator, right, of Judea, which is like, it's a slight error, right? But it shows that Luke, I don't think it proves he's inspired, but I think that it shows that he's being very careful, meticulous, and he understands the text, and which is what we expect to find if a text were inspired, right? He says, TLS, I heard before Christ returns, a third temple will be built. I mean, I do believe that a third quote unquote temple will be built, or a temple will be built before the return of Christ. I do believe that. I think Matthew 24 is abundantly clear. I don't know how you can analogize Matthew 24 away to say, well, that, you know, the temple is talking about the second temple. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just not. It's just not, dude. You know, like Matthew 24 has cosmic signs that come along with it. Wars, rumors of wars. You know, it's connected with the salvation of Israel, the gathering of the elect, right? Which we know is Isaiah 27's a gathering from Assyria and all the scattered. But you can't say that has already been fulfilled, right? So, but I do believe there will be a temple. I'm not going to say that it's the temple. You can make predictions like that, but I don't like to make those arguments. Who knows when it's going to come? Might be soon, might come later down the road. Just keep our lamps filled with oil. Strangely enough, I think that passage is more so about tribulation, people in the tribulation, awaiting for the return of Christ rather than church age believers. I know that Bob Woken or some people like Jody Dillow potentially argue like that. I know. I think in context, it's talking about the tribulation period. You can get application from it and say, oh yeah, it applies secondarily to the church, and you can get, you have to fill your oil in terms of teaching and something like I can see that, I can see that, but he says, what do you mean by the temple versus the third temple? Well, what I'm saying is, okay, maybe I'm not clear. I'm not going to make a prediction about what temple, right? Like whether it's going to be the temple that's going to be built now or whether that's going to be destroyed. I'm not going to make a prediction. It could be the third temple. I'm not saying it's not the third temple. I'm just saying, look, I'm not going to make this hard and fast prediction about, look, when it's going to happen and what timing and stuff like that. I try to avoid those kinds of things. But if I could give my best guess, it probably is going to be the third temple built soon by the nation of Israel. right? Which they're going to sign a covenant to bring back sacrifices and stuff like that, because of their unbelief, right? So now some people argue in Daniel chapter 9 that that's talking about like Jesus as the one who brings in the covenant. I mean, you got to do a lot of stretching. You got to do a lot of stretching to argue that way, you know? Yeah, chronologically, it would be the third. Yeah, technically speaking, yes, it would be a third temple because you got Solomon's temple, you got Herod's temple, and then you got finally a new temple, right? But we don't know if it's the temple that they're talking about right now in that they're prophesying for Israel. Because here's the thing, right? It could be that Jesus waits another 500 years. I don't know. If Jesus waits another 1,000 years, if Jesus waits another 100, we don't know, right? So that's basically it. You know, because the thing is, I don't know when he'll come back. Now, if you're pre-wrath, you'll argue there's certain things that have to take place, and then you'll know when he's coming back and stuff like that. But no, I obviously don't believe that. I obviously don't believe that. Obviously, since I'm dispensationalist. I don't know if there's anything more to really go into. I'm trying to see, you know. But obviously, I do appreciate the questions because again, this is going to be our last stream on the new covenant for a while now. You know, because we basically finished our series. I mean, guys, this has taken a long time. I mean, it's a lot of chapters, man. You know, it took a long time. So I'm not complaining or anything. I like doing it. It's just dang. I mean, a lot of Sundays that I had to do. So it was a very fulfilling series. I'll say that much. It helped the audience clarify some things. So I do appreciate that. But if and also, by the way, before I would previously call Kurt in to close the stream, but since I'm admin now, I can just close the stream whenever I want, right? So that's pretty good. And I think we said all we needed to. It's Ezekiel, Isaiah, Hosea, right? Jeremiah, etc., etc. So all of that is pretty solid. But other than that, right now, I think I'll be closing off the stream now, unless again there's other questions and other chats. Let me see. I want to make sure, right? Because I don't want to miss any. Okay. So we got Noob's Revenge, right? Okay. So Noob's Revenge. Okay, I'm seeing him in the other stream. I didn't even see that. So New Covenant, that's funny. Your book was put together between 70 and 150 CE. Right? Hold on. 150 CE, at least 2.5 decades after the alleged time. Well, I'd say around like 60 to 90, but okay. That's actually not an issue because, again, I'm going to use your standard. If you want to go with that standard, you don't know if Alexander the Great existed. You don't know if Socrates existed. You don't know if Homer existed. All of their writings were their manuscripts were hundreds of years. They were only recorded down on a written record, like hundreds of years because it was passed down orally. So again, if you want to go with that standard, Noobs, you're going to have to consistently apply. See, people just say this stuff. 2.5 decades is not long, bro. 2.5 decades is not long. 1 Corinthians 15, the creed about Christ, yeah, that dates back to around 3 to 4 years after the events happened. That's not an issue. I don't understand why people have this argument that's like it's like this Muslim argument. It's like, bro, within 2.5 decades. It's like, so that's not an issue. Mark was written around like 80, 50, 55, right? Matthew or Mark. You know, like that's pretty early, actually. 20 years is pretty good. He says your book was put together. Pliny, Tacit, and Josie were not first-hand accounts based off the date of their birth. I didn't say they were. I didn't say they were. I said what the first 9 accounts were. Jesus himself would have been considered to be unclean for the first 7 days of his life. Couldn't do it. Mary is also unclean, and therefore no one could be pure without blemish. That's ritually unclean. That's ritually unclean, dude. He's not spiritually. He didn't sin. What are you talking about? Like, in your argument, that's ritual impurity under the law of Moses, right? For specific ceremonial reasons. That's not immorality. And also, by the way, I'm not Catholic, so Mary being unclean is not an issue, right? So he says, fourth temple, if you count the tabernacle from Moses. I don't count the tabernacle from Moses because the tabernacle is a tabernacle, right? It moves with the people, right? That's the point of it. So a tabernacle moves with the people. A tabernacle moves with the people, whereas the temple stays in one place. This is actually a key difference in the book of Hebrews. You know, God moves where you are. God, God shows up whenever you need him. But that's what a tabernacle is. But a temple is stationary. Why? Because we are the temple. We carry the presence of God. Stuff like that. So he says, no, we know he did not create a 7-day structure for no reason. The 7th day is the millennium. So on one day of the earth, then we back day 6001. Okay. Actually, some early church theologians argued this, like Irenaeus, Justin Martyr, Papias. They argued this way where, like, and I think even Clement of Rome, he argued, well, because I think even Tertullian, because you have Noah's texting me as always, but basically the argument was that, well, you have a 7-day creation structure, and so the 7th day is the day of rest, and the 6th day is the day of work. Therefore, the final year is the millennium. Actually, I agree with Andy Woods. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think that's necessarily valid. In fact, I think if you trace it, I think it's been longer than 6,000 years, hasn't it? It's been a bit longer than 6,000 years. I think the millennium is just that. It's just a millennium. It's 1,000 years. There's no 7-day creation cycle with it. I mean, it's rest for the nation of Israel, sure. But it's not. Yeah, I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't argue that. Yeah. So I says, yeah, Noob says the craziest things, right? Yeah, dude. I almost feel offended. Like, your arguments are so bad. Like, I feel like you think I'm an idiot. And like, I try not to portray myself as that. I try hard, man. You know, as like atheists, they come in and they're like, man, you're just an idiot for believing a Jewish man rose from the dead, right? That he's crucified. You believe that your God was crucified. Like, you're an idiot, man. And it's like, at least try to have some evidence. You come in here, expound some nonsense about 20, 30 years off the chart, 30 years from the resurrection, and you're saying that's a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, I like, you think I'm an idiot. You think I'm an actual idiot, don't you? You think I'm retarded. It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. What is it? According to the regular and the Essene calendar, it's not been 6,000 years. I forget from the generations of Adam. I got it. From the Essene calendar, it hasn't been 6,000 years. Okay. I mean, the thing is, from what I remember, it's been 6,800. I don't know, because people had different timings of it. The church fathers, some said it would be in AD 500, some said it would be in AD 1000. Like, it depends on which calendar you use. I obviously don't believe it's based on if it were to be 6,000 years, it wouldn't be based on the Gregorian. I'll tell you that much. It wouldn't be based on the Gregorian. So that's pretty obvious. And what else? And he says, and I think what else? And there's also, of course, there's potentially the other one. We got another one there too. So he says, it's true. We don't. So I'm going to go to the Irish breakfast here on the other stream, because people are doing it on both streams. Guys, do it on one stream. Do it either on the layman's like the live stream with the vertical or with the horizontal. I I don't want to keep going back and forth. He says it's true. We don't know, but if you watch videos on YouTube with the Jews in Israel and temple, they are getting ready to build the temple. I mean, I don't doubt you. I don't doubt you. The disciples were busy teaching disciples the same content that was in the scriptures. First King Solomon's temple in the temple during the time of Jesus, and third temple will come according to Orthodox Judaism. Yeah, that's not a problem. And then New Holiday says you're wrong about the covenant. If I'm wrong about the covenant, write a paper about it. We can evaluate it. Simple as that. If you think I'm wrong about the new covenant, you write me an essay. You send it over to Layman. He sends it over to me, and then we evaluate it together. All of your arguments. I'll do it. I swear to you, we'll do an entire stream that day because I'm admin now. We'll do an entire stream that day. And I will evaluate your paper on the new covenant. If you can prove to me that the new covenant is experienced by the church, then write a paper about it, right? And then we can evaluate that paper in a reacts or something like that. So that would be goated. I would really appreciate that. What else? And I think in both streams, I think we basically yeah, I think we basically are good. Greetings, people of the free will. Oh, Ace Theo, why are you such a character, man? Why are you such a character? But yeah, I think we're basically done with it. Basically done with it. So it's been and thanks, Ashley, for the questions. As everyone else, thanks for the questions. I love answering those objections as well. So we're just gonna hop off the stream right now, right? We're gonna hop off the stream right now real quick, but before we do, it's been great going over these two books. We're gonna return to the normal reacts videos next week. It's a react video that a friend sent me in, right? Well, I don't know if he's still my friend, right? But he wanted me to react to it. So we'll just be going over the regular content, and it should be good. And then after that, we should have a Christmas break, right? So happy holidays then. And yeah, just like the video, subscribe if you appreciated it, share all of that stuff, watch old stuff, new stuff, and we will see you guys later. Peace. Right? Yeah, I just got to end the stream now. Hold on. It takes a while because my computer's so slow. Oh my gosh. Okay. Don't be surprised